Hey everybody, Andre here. Well, as you can see from the scenery behind me, I don't know if you've ever seen a military barracks room, but this is pretty much the extent of it. It's one little room and a bathroom with a sink. I was kind of excited. I just have a working fridge. That's kind of nice. But here I am, beautiful Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. That's sarcasm. I think I'd rather be anywhere in the world but this particular base, but whatever. You win some, you lose some. I'm doing what's called ILOC, Intermediate Location Training, meaning it's a fancy way of saying it's my pre-deployment workup. So, anyways, well, one little update. Unfortunately, we're nowhere near my car right now. It's back home in Florida. My brother is very excited. My older brother is getting a chance to spend some time with it. He's taking care of it for me. He just got our oil changed. He got new tires put on for me. Just some of the cheaper stock Pirellis that came on it originally, but it needed to be done, and I'm going to be gone till just about next year, so it needed new rubber. But anyways, so like I said in my last video, just, since I'm this is taking over my life, I mean, rightfully so. I knew what I was getting into when I joined 8 years ago. But let's talk a little bit about, well, heck, just joining the military. I know that there's a lot of people out there that have always, I've run into a lot of people that have been on the fence with it. I run into a lot of people that I can't tell how many times a day I hear something along the lines of, well, I was going to join the Marines, but, or I was going to join the military, but, or, hey, I'm thinking about joining the military, and then they get my honest opinion. A very good friend of mine actually she's joining. She did kind of what I did, joined late. She's 25 and she's getting ready to finish her enlistment paperwork, and she should be shipping off in June actually. But let's just talk a little bit about, first off, I highly recommend to everybody to do their research as far as the opportunities within each branch of the military. Each branch has a slightly different set of jobs that you can pick from. This is going to be just kind of an overview. If you guys have any questions, anyone who watches this have any questions, by all means leave one in the comment. I'd be more than happy to answer to the best of my ability. I'm not necessarily a recruiter, but hey, I've been in this gun club for 8 years now. This is not my first trip overseas, so I might be able to help you out. I might be able to point you in the right direction. But back to what I was saying, I highly recommend anyone to do your research, but I would tell you that you should probably pick what you want to do versus what you think will set you up for a job in the future. Because especially on, let's just take aviation mechanics for example. That sounds great, right? Aviation mechanics, I work on airplanes. But there's a really good chance that you're going to end up in a specialty field. Like, they do have some MOSs in the Marine Corps where your job is to fix one particular part of a helicopter or airplane, and that's what you get a lot of your experience doing. So don't think that the military is necessarily going to train you for a perfect transition job where you go right from the military to a civilian career. That does happen, but it's not always as common as people think. What I would tell you is, for example, and just as a good example, when you take your ASVAB, you have an overall score, I think it's an AFQT, it's scored out of like 99. And then for the Marine Corps in particular, you have a set of other scores beyond that, like your breakdown scores, like how well you did on the mechanical portion, the electronics portion, and so forth. Like the Navy really cares about like the electronics portion, I believe, whereas the electrical portion, excuse me, and where the Marine Corps, your GT score is the one that they really care about, and you need a 110 on that to do anything in the Marine Corps. Remembering back to my day when I took the ASVAB, I scored a 97 on the overall, and I scored a 132 on my GT score. I could have done anything, and I joined the infantry. It's what I wanted to do when I joined the Marine Corps back then. However, it hasn't stopped me from being successful in my civilian career. especially being a reservist. And I'll get into that another time. But what I would tell anybody is that a good written resume, learning how to sell your military experience to a civilian corporation goes light years. What they would, I guess the stereotype is if you were in the infantry, your best translation would be like police officer or high school janitor. I think the joke is sometimes, or pizza delivery guy. You know, it's usually where those of us in the infantry are looked down upon as far as intelligence. But you will find some of the smartest people in the Marine Corps in the infantry. It does happen quite often. But moving from that, I work, as I said before, I work essentially for a very large company. I work in the logistics division of said company in a large warehouse, and I make very good money. My military job did not necessarily directly translate to that, but what did translate were things like people management, leadership, especially in the infantry, knowing that you need to be somewhere at a certain time with certain gear, with certain people, the whole 9 yards. That carries over very well. So you really just need to know how to sell it. So what I'm getting at is when you're choosing a job, choose what you want to do. I was reading earlier, and there was a poet who had a quote which was, of all sad words of tongue and pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. Don't leave anything on the table. You're joining the military. Leave no regrets. Pick what you think you want to do, and don't ever look back. What you do is, whether you're a reservist or active duty, you get the GI Bill. You take the GI Bill. It's a very good benefit. Reservists only get a portion of it until we do certain amount of active duty or deployments, active duty time or deployments. Or you're active duty for 4 years, which my friend is doing. She's joining. She wants to be in meteorology. She's going to use the GI Bill when she gets out, and she's trying for one of the meteorology MOSs that the Marine Corps has. We have 3. But you take the GI Bill. It's going to in the full. If you get the full GI Bill, it pays all the tuition up to the most expensive public university. It gives you a book stipend every year, and it pays you housing allowance for an E5, which is a sergeant. That's what I am. Which, just as an example, if you were going to, let's say, FAU in Boca Raton, Florida, your housing allowance each month that they would give you after they paid your tuition would be about $2,200 a month to go to school. That's crazy. I mean, so I highly recommend choose what you want to do, go to school afterwards, and learn how to sell your military experience on a resume. And I think that there's nothing in the world that would stop you from doing what you wanted to do. On the other side of that, there are some good fields in the Marine Corps that do translate outside of it. It's just you have to be careful when you pick those. And not everything that a recruiter tells you is going to be completely accurate in that regard. Because at the end of the day, their job is to get you in the Marine Corps or the military in general. And far too often I hear horror stories of people that got into something that they completely hate and they don't want anything to do with. And you know what that ends up doing? That hurts retention. They don't want to re-enlist because they, A, can't move out of that job, and B, they don't want to stay in because of how screwed they got joining. So definitely do your homework and your research on that. The other part is, it's important to know what you want to do. It's also kind of important to know which organization, which branch you want to be a part of. And I say that because the Marine Corps in particular is a very special group. We are definitely probably the most indoctrinated. And that's just a nicer way of saying brainwashed. And it sounds very negative, but the truth is that you go through boot camp. And boot camp is 100% how to be a Marine. You're learning everything all over again, and they have an amazingly efficient way of breaking you down and building you up, and it is a very positive change for a lot of people. It leads to some transitional efforts, challenges outside of the Marine Corps, but that's not something that you can't overcome. You just have to realize that that's what's going on. and that there is some growing pains on both sides of it. I tell everyone that the best way to know if the Marine Corps is right for you is not that you can be talked into it, but that you can't be talked out of it. And I'll use me as an example. When I decided to join the military and I was 23, you know, I had already been around the world a little bit. I've been in the world a little bit. You know, I owned my own house. My son was turning 2. I was a big history buff through high school. And when I think of the military, I think of things like the Iwo Jima Monument that's, well, for one, in Washington, D.C. and on Parris Island, South Carolina, which is where Marine Corps boot camp on the East Coast is. And so I think of that. And I think of I don't know, something about the Marine Corps itself just spoke to me. It could have been the challenge. It's something that to this day I'm not 100% sure what made me attracted to it, but there was nothing. I walked into a shared recruiting office where there was the Army on the left of the hall and the Air Force was on the right and the Navy was right before the Air Force, and then there was the Marine Corps at the very end of the hallway. So I walked through, and you know, I actually got stopped by an Army recruiter, and I just kept going. No thanks, I know where I'm going. I didn't even look at the other branches because I was going to do the Marine Corps or I wasn't going to join the military. Period. I walked in, I sat down, I told him, let's do this, and my recruiter talked to me for about 4 hours about all kinds of great stuff that I didn't care because I was like, no, I'm here to join the Marine Corps. You don't have to sell me on any of this. Like, I'm not interested in, not interested in how much money I'm going to make, not interested in any of the benefits. I was there to join the Marine Corps, period. Come hell or high water. And you know, I meet a lot of people that that think of you know, that are in with me, and a lot of them counting down days till they get out. I'm going to tell you that I just re-enlisted, but I'm also on the fence. I'm in this part of my career where I love to hate it and I hate to love it. I just, you know, I have my days where I'm like, man, why did I re-enlist? And then I have days where it's like, I know I ain't re-enlisted. You know, I love what I do, and I love the Marines that I serve with, you know, and that's probably why I'm most likely going to re-enlist again after this, to be honest with you. But there are some trying, challenging days. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning right now, and I just got done writing a lot of the training schedules, training plan for, you know, my team while we're here, getting us ready for our deployment. And you know, I'm gonna be up at, you know, I get to sleep in a little bit. I'll probably be up at about 5 a.m. So 3 hours of sleep, yay. So I apologize. I'm trying to stay, you know, on topic here. But the biggest thing is, you know, like I'd love to hear any questions that any of you guys have. What I'm gonna try to do is do, you know, I'm talking about, you know, picking your branch, and really that's just, it's a very personal choice. It's whatever you want. But I stress that it's whatever you want. Don't listen to anyone else. You know, don't let anyone else sway you. I can tell you all day long that the Marine Corps has the lowest quality of living. The Air Force has the highest. The Navy has some of the best food. And the Army is just this gigantic entity where they're all about the numbers and they're less about the quality of training. And that's usually what you find. Not that that's the rule, but that's usually the case. Just in my experience, you know, I've worked with the Army before, I've worked with the Air Force and the Navy. There is one joke I'll tell you. So, see, each branch we fight amongst each other, and I'm sure that, you know, if you've been around, you know, anyone in the service, usually we'll pick at each other. You know, the Marines will pick on the Army, the Air Force gets picked on by everyone, and the Navy, you know, they get called. Usually, there's usually some slurs against their sexuality. But I'll tell you that, so the biggest thing though is that we all speak kind of a different language. And if you take the term, secure the building. The Army will set up a perimeter outside and they won't let anyone in or out of the building. The Marine Corps will go in, kill everybody inside and set up a command center. The Navy will turn off all the lights and lock all the doors. And the Air Force, they'll take out a 5-year lease with an option to buy. So you secure the building. Everyone thinks of it a little bit differently. But outside of that, so picking your branch, that's going to be a personal choice, but it's going to come down to what you want to do, the opportunities in each branch, as well as, who you want to be a part of. Who do you want to help represent? And that's a big deal, because there is a lot of pride in every branch on the uniform that you wear. So at the end of the day, it's just figuring out which one you want to associate with yourself. And from there, picking what you want to do. And again, make it what you want to do. Don't pick something because you think it's going to be good for you later in life. Because if you spend 4 years, and it's a 4-year commitment, right? So you're going to spend 4 years hating what you do. And sure, you get some good benefits, but that doesn't make any sense. Pick something that is soul satisfying to yourself. Be happy with what you do. Be proud of what you do. That's the most important thing. Then take the benefits and make your life better afterwards, or stay in for a career. There's great opportunities to have a career, but it is a challenging career. It is a trying, and it is a very consuming career, and it's very hard. It's very hard on your family. It's very hard on your loved ones, but few things that I've ever done in my life are as rewarding as what I do in the Marine Corps, and that's the truth. And my son is turning he just turned 9. I missed his 9th birthday, and all I could do was make a phone call and send him an extra birthday gift because I already celebrated with him early. But he's getting to that age where he understands what I do, and I can only hope that he's proud of me as he gets older and he understands the times that I've spent away from him. So on that note, I'm going to stop this one here. This one went a little long, but the next one I'm going to do a little bit more about my experiences. I'm going to talk about boot camp. I'm going to talk about that I could talk all day about, but I'm going to talk about boot camp, and I'm going to talk about what life as a reservist is like, and kind of how that is different from active duty. But anyways, hey, till next time, guys. If you like the video, subscribe, give it a thumbs up.